Hello, I'm Jeremy Nicholas, and welcome to the After Dinner Show. Happy Wednesday, is it? Monday, Wednesday? I don't know. I get those muddled up. So easy, isn't it, to muddle up a Monday and a Wednesday? So let's meet the guests. You can see them all there in the window there. First of all, Deborah Henley is a corporate executive. Oh, hang on. That's doing that thing there. Deborah Henley is a corporate executive, coach, leader, trainer, facilitator, consultant, author, and speaker who specializes in helping people focus on their one true identity. Fantastic. Yes, and she's miming that. Sarah Fox is a contract expert whose plan to do more speaking internationally in 2020 has not got off the ground. So not very happy about that. And Stuart Harris speaks and runs workshops usually on sales and customer service. He's even delivered whiskey workshops on how it's made, where it's made, and even how to make whiskey cocktails. And tonight he's going to give us his tips on how to taste whiskey. So welcome, everybody. You can all unmute yourselves and say hello. How are you? Lovely. Oh, Stuart's got his whiskey there. I've got a lovely whiskey there. Has anyone ever got days of the week muddled up? Sarah, I believe you have.
Yeah, I bought one of those advance tickets to get out of London once and spent ages sitting in a pub with a friend having a drink so that I could get on the right train. And as I was walking to the guards, realised it was for tomorrow and just put my thumb over the date and kind of blagged it and stayed on the train hoping nobody would notice.
Fantastic. And Stuart, what day of the week is it in Scotland? It's Wednesday in England.
It is Wednesday, but it is still April.
Yeah. Because I know you have slightly different rules there, don't you? If Nicola says it's a Thursday, then it can be a Thursday so that you're always one step ahead of Boris. So that's good.
With the leader that you have at the minute right now, don't you dare slag our Nick.
Right,
She's doing a sterling job, as are all women leaders in the world just now.
Fantastic. Sounds like Stuart might have been tasting some of the whiskey before we came on. That's very good. And Deborah, we kick off with some quite sad news from your part of the world, Southwest London. Just to tell us what's happened there.
I'm not drinking whiskey tonight because I'm drinking the goldfish juice. It's in memory of our dear departed Stripey, who only half an hour perished in the middle of dinner. I got up to feed the two fish and discovered that Stripey had rigor mortis.
Oh no!
And I fished him out, and I then had to return to my dinner. It was fish pie.
Oh no! So where is Stripey now?
Well, Stripey is now in his coffin. I've got his coffin. The best I could do was a man-sized tissue box because they're out of fish size. So this is his coffin.
That's not him over your left shoulder, is it? Against the window.
Yeah.
That's his friend the shark. So I'm just keeping him present so you can remember. Shall I unveil him? No, I think I'll leave.
No, I don't think we want to see a dead body on the programme, for heaven's
sake.
But
there he is. So tomorrow I told my son we're having a funeral. I said, should we put him in the bin? And he said no. Can we bury him and tell stories of his life?
Yeah. Is it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the guidelines are about funerals in England for fish at the moment.
Oh yeah, I think it's okay if there's just two of us.
Yeah, I think I heard Dominic Raab say you were allowed two mourners as long as they were 2 meters apart. So I think you'll be right with that.
And one could be alive and the other one's in the box.
Yeah, the trouble is you've got to think outside the box with these things. The thing is, with goldfish, you tell them one thing, like, oh, you've got to keep 2 meters apart, and then a split second later, they've forgotten. You've got to tell them again.
That was the problem for the other one, Nugget. He was circling around, and every 3 seconds he had to be re-traumatized as he came across the body of his little friend there. He's dead. Oh my God. And then off he'd swim for a bit and...
I've got the same problem. I've got a great aunt who's 99, and every time I go and see her, she asks how my mum is, and every time I have to tell her that she's still dead.
Oh
no.
Oh no. But anyway, the good thing is I didn't eat my fish pie in the end, and it's not a bad thing because I'm on a bit of a diet, and I'm getting healthy. I've started my couch to 5K. Do you know about this couch to 5K exercise regime?
I've been doing that.
You have?
I've been, but it's not exactly the same. I've been doing 5K to couch during lockdown, and it's I can tell you it's going very well.
Have you nearly got to the couch phase now, Jeremy?
Yeah. So what? How many Ks are you up to, Deborah?
Well, I've done a week, so I'm still closer to couch. I'm still on the sea, but I have. But I've been doing other things, to augment the diet. We've been making Corona cakes.
Oh, they look lovely. What are they made of?
They're made of kind of low-fat, low-sugar chocolate.
Nice.
Very healthy. And then there was this, which I came across on my recent skiing holiday. We went to Italy, actually, but we went through Austria, so they let us out without testing us. And I came across this lovely cheese, which I'm quite partial to.
Right.
But I can't have it at the moment, of course, because it's extra dick,
So
which
just,
means extra thick. So in German.
So it's ham, is it? It's ham, extra fat and extra thick. That's what it means, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that's rather nice and something I particularly like usually. And then they had something else there in the shop next to the extra dick cheese.
Yeah.
You've turned into Simon Hazeldine.
Which well, this is the back off and schinken, and this is what they use to maintain their social distancing. They just hold it up, they go back off and schinken.
What way you schinken? Back off.
Back off and schinken. You hold it out firmly. It's like one of those martial arts protective things. So I got myself a few, and if I'm in trouble and someone gets too close, I just at arm's length and a firm voice. Back off and schinken.
Fantastic.
So these are my
Great. Now let's before we crack on with the stories, I thought we'd have a little bit of a quiz for you, because this week's exciting news with the BBC have announced that they've made a lot of their old TV programs available as Zoom backgrounds. So I've just downloaded 4 of the sitcom backgrounds, and so we'll see if you can guess where these are. Right? Okay. So where do you think that one is? That's the first one.
Steptoe and Son.
Steptoe and Son. Point to Stuart Harris. But of course, he is the older gentleman here. Well, he's the only gentleman here.
I've got an advantage.
You have got an and this is quite an old one as well. But so hold back, Stuart. Family hold back, they say, and see if the ladies can get this one. Where do we think that is? Whose office is that?
Is that
Reggie Perrin?
Minister.
Reggie Perrin, yes.
Reggie Perrin, of course.
But for the point, Sarah, I need to know whose office it is in Reggie Perrin, though.
Well, it's a bloke on the wall at the back, but I can't remember what his name was.
He was his boss, and he had 2 initials.
Oh,
CJ?
CJ, says Stuart, coming in.
I didn't get to where I am today without completing that sentence.
Yeah, without.
That's it. His catchphrase was, I didn't get where I am today without knowing a Zoom background when I see one. Right, let's try this one. Deborah yet to score, of course, but of course she's still grieving Stripey, the goldfish who died earlier today. Right, so where do we think that is?
Well, that's the bar in Fawlty Towers, isn't it?
That is the bar in Fawlty Towers. Fantastic. And the last one, here we go. Where do we think this one is?
Oh, is that the prison in Porridge?
Porridge, yes. And the name of the prisoner?
Fletcher. Was it Ronald Stanley Fletcher?
Norman
Stanley Fletcher, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So a lot of fun we've had there. Now let's go back to my proper background, the view that I actually do have behind me out of the window. Let's just go back to that. That's not a Zoom background. That's actually, I live just on the bank of the river. So let's kick off with a story from Sarah, I think. All I know about Sarah's story is it's something to do with camping.
It's something to do with camping. So this is one of those stories that kind of passed into family history. It was about this time of year, about 10 years ago, and we'd bought my husband a tent for his 40th birthday because we know how to enjoy ourselves. We were 40, we had kids. That's the sort of thing you buy for 40th birthday presents. Anyway, we'd invited my in-laws to go camping with us, and they've got a big, complicated bell tent. And we assumed that they would bring it with them. And in fact, we'd been away with them a couple of weekends before and said, you've got a big tent. We won't, we'll just bring one of our little ones, chuck one of the kids in it, and you can share our big tent. And then we went away for the whole of half term. And we were going to go up on the bank holiday Monday. You couldn't book at this campsite. So we were going to get there nice and early, turn up. And I said to my husband, we're going camping, but on the understanding that I'm not sharing a tent with your parents again. And he said, no, that's fine. I'll make that clear. They're going camping. Obviously, you bring a tent. So we arrived early and they were coming from a bit further away. So we arrived, found a nice spot for 2 big tents, pitched our tent, got everything sorted. We were sitting there having a little drink, and they drove up in their car. And we said, oh, right, you can see we've got this nice flat bit next to us for your tent. And they looked at us as if we'd just spoken in Klingon and grown another head. And they said, what do you mean, our tent? It's like, well, we're going camping. You have bought a tent, haven't you? They went, no, we assumed you'd bring one. It's like, okay, so we've got a 6-man tent. We've got 3 boys and 2 of us. So our tent is what you might call already fairly fully occupied. So Brian's parents also, having failed to bring a tent, the other thing you need to know about them is all their packing is done into carrier bags, old carrier bags. So they don't have like a one big box with all their camping stuff in. So after we transferred the 72 different items in carrier bags into our tent, plus their double air bed, plus their 14 duvets, because they suffer from the cold, the tent was now rammed to the rafters. I was slightly seething because I could tell that this camping holiday was going to be a little bit tighter and a bit too kind of close knit. So I sat down in my chair and asked my mother-in-law, who was responsible for drinks as well as tents, if she would make me a cup of tea. And now I don't drink brown tea. It's not because Karl Marx said property is theft, but I like a purple tea, a blackcurrant tea. And she said she would bring all the drinks, including the red tea. So I said, please could I have a cup of tea? Because the steam was coming out of my ears and I really needed just something to make me feel a bit better. And she said, oh, no, I didn't bring any pink tea for you. I said, but you said you were bringing red tea. She said, no, red tea means wine. It's like, on what basis could
red tea
mean wine? So
ridiculous.
We'd gone camping, and through the communication, the art of communication, we'd failed to communicate that red tea meant wine, like anyone would guess, but camping meant taking a tent. So it's a particularly tense little camping experience that we had, to be quite honest. But, you know, we've vaguely forgiven her, although every time we go away, we do mention the fact that she's not very good at packing.
But they sound like awful people, your in-laws. They sound shocked. I mean, what sort of people pack into carrier bags to go on holiday? I mean, it's just dreadful. I mean, the tent thing can be a misunderstanding, but just packing in carrier bags is just sloppy behaviour. So anyway, that's do you see much of your ex-husband's family now?
Yeah, we see quite a bit of them, and we quite often mention the very clear need to be absolutely precise about what they're bringing and what they're not bringing.
So you are still with him. So you do have to
I'm still with him. Yes.
This dreadful family. You haven't ever been away with the dreadful family again, have you? No. Well, that's just awful. Right. Recommended reading for you: Emma Kennedy, The Tent, The Bucket, and Me. Have you ever heard of that book? Yeah, it's a fantastic book. Emma Kennedy, The Tent, The Bucket, and Me, all about family holidays in Wales.
Yeah.
Her dad is Welsh and her mum's not from sort of Watford area, I think. It's just, have you read that?
I have read it, actually. Yeah, it was hysterical. I mean, our camping holidays, in fact, it made me feel slightly better about the camping trip with the mother-in-law that didn't bring a tent, to be quite honest, because none of our camping trips involved putting a foot in a bucket of wee or falling down a hill in a storm or whatever it was.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed The Tent, The Bucket, and Me, I can also recommend the follow-up, I Left My Tent in San Francisco, which is when she then travels once she's at university. It's not very good. So a cracking story to kick us off. No pressure. Stuart, we'll come to you last because you've got the whiskey, and I think that we want to do the proper tasting of that. So Deborah, can we come to you for your story? I know you have a terrible track record of going on holiday and forgetting your passport.
Well, the good thing is I'm pretty good at packing, and I don't just use carrier bags. I use real suitcases. And so my first passport problem experience occurred when I'd packed really well to go skiing with my uncle and my cousins to look after them. He was recently divorced, and I was about 25, and he wanted some help with the kids. So I thought, free skiing holiday.
So you were like a sort of chalet maid. You were a chalet maid for your uncle.
Last thing at night. Yeah. And all ready to go. And in the morning, we set off early to catch the first ferry across from Calais. And we got there. We were just about to go through the barriers. And my uncle turned to me and said, "Can I have your passport, please?" And I said, well, you know, we're part of the European Union. We don't really, do we need passports? And we're going by boat.
No.
We're not going by plane. So he put me on a train, sent me back to London, and I got back in time with my passport, and we did catch the last ferry over. But we, you know, I was forgiven by my uncle. But then 10 years later, I met a new boyfriend, and I said, do you want to come on a skiing holiday with me and my family? We haven't been together very long, and he was a very fastidious person. So again, we set to packing. He packed 2 weeks before, and he was all ready, and I was still packing at 10 p.m. at night. And finally I said, done. And he said, have you got your passport? And I said, let me just have a look for that. So I looked around, and he was just going, what, you don't know where your passport is? And I was going, well, somewhere around here. And he started tearing his hair out. He's going, I just don't think I can cope with this. And I was going, don't worry, I'll find it. But I was just terrified that my lovely new relationship was really in the balance. And he was just going, I can't cope. I'm not sure I can cope with this. I'm not sure I want to come. I don't. Anyway, it got to midnight and the passport was nowhere to be seen. And we were catching an early morning flight. We were due to meet everyone at the airport at 6:30. So he said, I'm off. I'm going to go home. I'm not sure I'm going to come. I just don't, I can't deal with this. So off he went back to his flat. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go. I think it's at work. And so the next morning, as soon as the tubes opened, I think it was 4:45 or something, I leapt on the first tube, got there, went to work, and sure enough, my passport was there. And I came back. I called my boyfriend and said, are you going to come on holiday with us? I got the passport. And he said, he did say yes.
Oh, okay.
But it could have gone either way. And I didn't know where it was going to go. And 10 years later, we have a child, and off I went with the child. This is to the same man. We're married. And he said to me, as I packed our bags to go off with my young son to France to visit some friends, he said, have you got your passport? And we're in the car. He's dropping us off at Heathrow. And I said, yep, I've got my passport. He said, have you got Jamie's passport? Yep, I got Jamie's passport. All right then. So he dropped us off, left us, off he set. We went up to, queued for hours, got to the front desk. Can I have your passports, please? And I presented my son's passport and my husband's passport.
Oh, no.
We're still just about married. So his lovely bank holiday watching rugby or whatever else he was going to do. He's a Welshman. He loves rugby, like all Welshmen. So he got that ruined driving back and forth to the airport, searching out our passports. But
that is the good thing about the Welsh, though. They do have a good sense of humour, so he probably didn't mind that much.
They do. And he's the one. They also pronounce their double L's in a rather special way, I find. Because my husband actually worked at Cloyd's Bank, and he likes Clamers, and he's partial to Cool J. So it's a lot of fun that we have at home. He likes putting dickle on his salmon.
Okay, enough now. Enough of double L's. Well, he sounds dreadful, but yeah.
We're
so
still married, and I've still got a passport.
Yeah, and you've got a child and at least one goldfish at the moment. We think.
Probably.
You had to mention that, didn't you?
Yeah, at least one. We might need to check before the end of the program. So cracking story there. So let's just before we go to Stuart, a guest on last week's program was Jackie Barry, who some of you might know, a good friend of ours in the speaking community. And after the program, she said she enjoyed being on so much. She said, can I have your address? And she sent me a little gift, 101 whiskies to try before you die. So that'll come into useful tonight, won't it? You know, so I can
nice.
do that. Yeah. But I don't want you to think I'm showing you this because a guest on last week's program bought me a lovely gift. I don't want anyone I'm showing it because it's a feature about whiskey. And if you then did decide to send me a gift, then of course that would be entirely up to you. So let's go to Stuart, who is his main job in the world is whiskey demonstrator. He'll stand in the department store, that big one on Prince's Street in Edinburgh, and just hand out whiskey to people. That's his main job. So
yeah, and that's not even inside the shop.
No.
Can I just quickly tell you my Welsh story? A Scouse friend of mine lived in Liverpool all his life. He said, will you come and do I'm the captain of the club, I'm stepping down, could you come and do the after dinner? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I get down, and I don't know, half an hour or something like that. And I said, is there anything I should say, anything I shouldn't say, anything off the books? And no, that was good. Open season. So I get started how I knew him and all this sort of stuff. And then I get into the routine, the difference between Liverpool and Glasgow, football, music, football, and I talked about the difference. And from that point on, I just died. I wouldn't say died in my arse because that's almost rude, but die. And I'm going, that is funnier than this. What's going on? And as I sat down at the end, I said, was that all right? It seemed to die a wee bit about halfway through. He said, if this was in Liverpool, they would have loved it. I said, but we are in Liverpool, aren't we? He said, no. Liverpool's right beside the Welsh border, and we're 3 miles the other side of the border. They hate Scousers more than they hate the rest of the UK. So, and they now hate Glaswegians. So that's more like Welsh story. And
so your whole thing was sort of anti-Liverpool, but because they were
anti-Liverpool, but they were all with me. Power of the people. Anyway, getting on to whiskey, I know that Jeremy likes a wee tipple every now and again. And when I've seen him taking a whiskey, I know that he tries to be all clever and all, and tries and sniffs it, and he's often hold up your glass, Jeremy.
Yeah.
He tends to drink a whiskey out of there, and I said, so how would you taste that whiskey? And he said, well, I'd stick my nose in it and I'd take a drink. And I said, you're doing it all wrong. You don't taste whiskey out of glasses like this. You taste whiskey out of glasses like that. You drink whiskey out of them, you taste out of them. And these are called Glencairn whiskey glasses. Very, very specific shape. And the way that you taste whiskey, the first thing that you do with tasting whiskey is not taste it.
Okay.
Is to nose it.
Nose it, okay, yeah.
And there's a number of things that go on as far as your nose is concerned. If you think about the senses in your mouth, you've pretty much only got 5. Is it, you get the salt and sweet and the bitter and the Uvavi or whatever Vic Reeves used to call it. That's the one.
Uvavu?
Yeah. That one's not reached us. We get bitter, sour, alcohol. That's it.
Yeah.
But what you would do with a whiskey, and I've got a couple of whiskies here, but I'm going to go for a wee Glenmorangie. I was going to go for a Jura, which is very nice. I tend to buy whiskey in half bottles, not just because it makes my hands look very big, but it means that I can try different whiskies, because sometimes you've got a wee penchant for a light whiskey or a fuller whiskey. A lot of friends like the very peaty whiskies, like Lagavulin or Lafroig, which you'll find on Isla whiskies, because there's so much peat used in it. But I'll take a wee whiskey here. And what I would suggest you do is, if you're going to try whiskey, there's a big thing about nosing whiskey. And what you would do, and again, what you've just done is what most people would normally do. They stick their whiskey up their nose and give it a big good. Now, what often happens, and the reason why a lot of people say, I don't like whiskey, is because they've not calmed down. You've not, wait till you have finished the class. What people tend to do goes, I'm not really a whiskey drinker, and somebody who is a whiskey drinker will tend to hand them something that's very peaty. And that is too strong, because a lot of people say it tastes like TCP or Germaline. There's a story behind that as well, which I won't go into.
Yeah.
What I would tend to say,
I'm not getting any Germaline or anything. Just have a sniff of that.
What you got?
Stuart, just have a sniff of mine, right? Have a good old sniff. Put your nose play the game. Put your nose near the camera. Put the nose to the camera.
Passing the glass.
See if you can smell that. Right now, tell me, using your skill and judgment, is that a Grant's. Is that a Glenfiddich single malt, or is it, and how do you say that, Aberlour?
Aberlour, yeah.
Yeah, which one do you think that is? Just smell it again, just to make sure. Say, which do you think it is?
It
I
smells
think it's Glenfiddich by the eye.
It's not Glenfiddich. It's not Glenfiddich.
I'll go Aberlour.
Aberlour. Sarah, do you want to have a go?
I'll go for whatever the other one was.
The other one, yeah, that was the Grant's, wasn't it? Well, fittingly, it's the Scotsman who's got it right. It is the Aberlour. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Again, just going with the colour. And there's a whole lot of things different with the colour. See?
Or do you give it an ear? Because when you were pouring it out, it made a lovely glugging sound as well. I could hear it.
Yes, and I probably put too much in there. I'm not a whiskey drinker. I'm a vodka drinker. That's the Russian in me. But what I would say, if you're going to try whiskey, first thing is smell it. And it's what you call nosing whiskey. And a lot of people just go for one big deep breath. And what that does, the alcohol in that almost sort of neutralizes the senses in your nose. It makes your nose drunk. So you don't really benefit from it. The way to nose something, that's the same with wine as well, is just let the whiskey pass your nose just once. And all that does is just really wake your nose up. So that just wakes it up.
Okay, and what I'm getting is the smell of whiskey. So that's good. But let's get on to the tasting of it, because for me, that's the more enjoyable bit than the smelling.
You've got to, if you want to cheat, okay, I've still got another 4 minutes, calm down. Second time is a bit longer. Your nose is now woken up.
Yeah.
And the second time, it might be a bit, okay, fine, it's a bit woody, or it's a bit fruity, or it's a bit sweet, or whatever it might well be. On the third nose, that's where you start picking up, oh, wait a minute, it's sweet because it smells a bit caramelly, or a bit like dried fruit, or it smells a bit like honey.
I tell you what I'm getting. I'm getting woody. I'm getting fruity. I'm getting most members of the Bay City Rollers when I put my nose in there. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the drinking of it, Stuart.
Right. The drinking again. What a number of people would say is just drink it.
It's beautiful. Yeah. So this is the Aberlour. Yeah.
Okay. And then
you do when you drink it.
It's a bit more than that. But the second time is drink it, but hold it in your mouth. Just let it slip over your tongue and into your gums, and that is slightly.
Now, for me, I've always thought that Aberlour is a cask strength whiskey that's quietly been making a name for itself over the past few years. And I'm particularly enjoying the big, rich flavours of this Speyside malt.
Are you looking for a sponsor?
Very nice.
Well, funnily enough, this is a Speyside as well. This is a Glenmorangie. Some people call it Glenmorangie. It's Glenmorangie. And what you do with the third, you know, if you're drinking wine, you're meant to hold the wine in your mouth, open your mouth slightly, and give it a bit of a around your mouth. Do that with the whiskey, and it just wakens up different parts of your mouth as well.
It is amazing how many people who make whiskey are called Glen, isn't it? That is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. But there's a whole load of different things that you pick up in your mouth. If you just take it and knock it back, you're not going to taste it. That's drinking whiskey, but that's not tasting whiskey. And if you think you've really got to use 3 senses, you've certainly got to use the nose. And when you're nosing it, keep your mouth open so that you get the whole movement of the whiskey smell going through your nose and through your mouth. Completely different smell, keep your mouth shut.
And would you say that the more expensive a whiskey is, the more expensive the Coke you put in it should be?
What should be what you put up your nose? No,
because I've got a very expensive bottle of whiskey in the garage, and I think you can't put Waitrose Coca-Cola in that. You know, you've got to put Coke in it. Really?
You remember? I know where you live. Yeah. No, there's so much snobbery about drinking whiskey and wines and everything else. If you like it with Coca-Cola, drink it with Coca-Cola. If you like it with Iron Brew, drink it with Iron Brew. If you're tasting whiskey, I would say don't put ice in it, because that almost sort of neutralizes the smells and the ethers. I've got a wee bottle of water, and what's recommended is, rather than just drinking it straight, I've got a touch of water in there before, is just, and if you keep your eye on this is how much water you put in. That is it.
As much as the whiskey, or
just a tiny drop.
Just a tiny bit. But it
a
depends
tiny
how
drop.
strong it is, doesn't it? Because
No.
most whiskies are about 40% proof, aren't they? But I've got one that's about 61% proof, which is...
You're not trying to water the whiskey down. If you want to do that, you're going to drink it. You're not tasting it. I would say if you're going to taste a whiskey, don't put water in it, because you drink that whiskey, then you drink that whiskey, and that one might have 2 drops of water, and that's got one. It's called a teardrop. If you're going to drink water in your whiskey, it's just ever so slightly, just putting a wee bit in. I don't think it's got anything to do with the alcohol. It's not a matter of trying to dilute it. It's just a matter of waking up the ethers, and you get different fumes, you get different makeup of the whiskey that's come through there, and different smells and different tastes.
Stuart, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge of whiskey. You are a true Scotsman, and
if you got me back on whiskey, I won't be happy with you.
No.
On a school night as well.
I know. And Deborah, what is it you're drinking there? Is that a goldfish smoothie?
It's called a Glen Orangery now.
All right.
Oh, like it.
Yes. And Sarah, you have something to show us, don't you? Now, Sarah is one of the country's top speakers on contract law. So, and what is that you've got in your hand there?
So it's a reproduction of a 5,000-year-old contract that's in the
sorry, just hold it up again, because I've just changed
sure.
the view to full screen. So
I'm sure you can read that. There's a couple of typos in it, probably.
Yeah, so that's the sort of thing you'd find in a museum, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a reproduction of one from the British Museum. It's a clay tablet that was made 5,000 years ago, although this one wasn't made 5,000 years ago, because it's got my website on the back.
Probably as effective as my tablet.
Yeah.
So what would that be a contract for then?
It was actually a contract for an exchange of services for beer. Because that was a safe thing to drink. Water wasn't safe in those days. It was a measure of value, and people wanted beer, so they gave up some of their time and gave some of their labour in order to get paid in beer.
And how old is that?
Beer made out of water.
Yes, but because the water's heated, it kills all the bugs in it. So beer was a way of pasteurising and sterilising water. So yeah, it's about 5,000 years old. It would have come from Persia. That one didn't. That came all the way from North Manchester.
So were people not drunk all the time?
No, because it was very weak beer. It's like the monks drank. It was about sort of 0.5%, so it wasn't actually very alcoholic at all.
Crikey. Oh. And you when you give talks on contracts, you hand those out for people to have a look at? And
yeah, absolutely. Because it just explains how contracts can in fact be portable. Because that's probably the shortest contract I've ever read. Not that I can in fact read it. I get someone to read it for me.
Fantastic. Right, okay, well, we're about out of time, but I always like my guests to have a bit of a plug for what they do in real life. So let's go to Stuart. What if people wanted to book you for some kind of a speaking engagement for when this whole lockdown craziness is over, what sort of things can you come and what wisdom can you share?
I speak mainly on customer retention. The workshops are mainly about how do we get the customers. The main talks are mainly about how do you keep them and how you keep them staying longer. We have a number of different techniques and ways about how you treat the customer from the minute they walk through the door to the minute they're thinking about walking back out the other door. And am I right in thinking you're going to post web addresses at the end? I'll
put the web addresses on the comments on the YouTube.
That's my thing. Customer retention.
Fantastic, and you're a very organised man. I'm fascinated by all those post-it notes, colour-coded post-it notes. What are they all about?
Have you heard of a thing called Trello?
Trello, yeah. It's an online thing. It's an online thing, so you don't need.
It's an online thing. The thing is known as a Kanban, and it's that you move things along. So the simplest terms, you could have a to-do list. Yeah. To do, doing. Sorry, to do, doing, done, and that is a list of things that I'm doing and moving further. It's like I've got Trello, but it's hidden away in my computer, and I go and look at it every now and again. That is there, so when I come in the morning, into the office, I call this my office. Other people call it my spare room. I look at that and I know exactly what I need to do.
Okay, this reminds me of about 20 years ago when I first got the internet, and I'd see an article I like and I'd print it off and file it away. It's like that. It's like, we can't trust the electric. The electric might go one day. No, but I don't know why I've given you an English accent.
I just like visual rather than going hunting things.
Yeah, very good. So Deborah, give yourself a plug in case the economy does ever come back to life. What can people book you to speak about?
Well, I talk about your leadership story, how you can use your story to influence, inspire, and sort of leadership identity stuff. And at the moment, I'm talking about, if someone will have me, your spark and how you get that spark of life, that gets ebbed away by struggle and pressure and anxiety and all those things that we're facing, and how we get that energy and spark back, what we can do to shore that up.
And it's not really for me to say, but if it was me and I had a dead goldfish that was, waiting burial, I would put that dead goldfish in the mouth of that shark behind you and just shoot a little video saying, ever worried that you're a small fish in a big sea, predatory beasts all around you? Come and join me and I'll show you how to be the one true. It's just an idea.
I might do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure I could face touching the poor little thing, but
yeah. And the animal rights people will love it if you do that. So definitely do that, Deborah. And
yeah,
Sarah, you talk about contracts, but give us a bit more detail about that.
Oh, I help companies to make their contracts simple, digital and trust-based, because this sort of technology isn't what we need. And having moved to virtual working, virtual teams and everything else, we need virtual contracting. And a lot of the contracts that we still have are paper-based and signed. Used to be signed by a pen or a quill. So we need to move away from that.
Fantastic. Well, that's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for sharing your tablet, and to Deborah sharing the news of your family bereavement, and Stuart for your marvellous talk about whiskey. What is it that Scots people say when you like toast people? What is that word?
Some people just say slange, which just means cheers, or slange va, which means good health, or in our case, slange maha, slange va maha, which means good health, my friend.
Well, that's easy for you to say. So thank you very much. Let's leave it there. When you get an out, that's it. Leave them on.
Let's go for a slange.
Yeah. Now, usually what happens at this point is I say thank you very much to my guest, and I just panic and end the Zoom call, which then does end the YouTube thing. And then last week, someone said, why did you end the Zoom thing? All we've got to do is stop the live thing. And then I can chat to you afterwards, like in the green room, and we can go, oh, you were marvelous. Yes, you were marvelous. So I'm going to try that. So you stay on the line. We'll say goodbye to the people watching live, and also to anyone watching on the thing. So let's all wave goodbye. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye.
Bye, Slange.
Bye, Slange. Go off for a good old Slange.